To be honest, the Minnesota Vikings have crushed free agency IMO. Diesel Dalvin Tomlinson, pissed off for greatness Patrick Peterson, as well as Nick Candlelight Vigil, all nail drivers, all will be in the mix for the Vikings day one. And yes, it is a meme slash trope that Spielman ignores the offensive line, but the Vikings' inaction in free agency so far, as well as cutting Riley Reef, leave the Vikings in a spot where they might have to draft offensive line early and often, no matter what, especially considering the lack of a second-round pick, which could cause them to miss out on some serious value in terms of best player available BPA. Because as it stands right now, the Vikings' offensive line is this. Tons of potential, but you need bodies and talent. I believe in Oli Udoh and Kyle Hinton, but yeah, you need to add some bodies in there. Plus, it's not great to telegraph exactly what you need in the draft, absent being in at the top of the stratosphere, because then you have to take that player in the first round or that position, and teams can see that and leapfrog you. So say a big-time offensive lineman, Darisaw, Slater, or whoever, drops out of the top 10 and then gets to 13. Teams will know that the Vikings are certainly going to take him at 14, so offensive tackle needy team could be like, hey, Chargers, at 13, yoink. Taking our guy, just snapping him up. And the concern for the Vikings is they might have to take an offensive lineman, say Elijah Vera Tucker, AVT, or offensive lineman no matter what at 14, which, again, would not be the end of the world because I love Christian Darisaw, I love Rashawn Slater, I love AVT. So, yeah, you could do a lot worse. And, hell, they may end up being the top player on your board anyway, so it's a moot point. But, man, you can miss out on a ton of value. Just looking at this board, man, look at who could be available. And again, before we get the, no way this player's going to be there. A lot of weird things are going to happen, man. This is going to be the most random draft in NFL history, given the circumstances. But, I mean, if Kyle Pitts is there, Micah Parsons, No Pants, or Trey Lance, my goodness. My goodness. And before we get into, well, just trade down. Just trade down and stay in the first round and get a second round pick. It's not that easy. It's not a given because you see how much talent is currently on that board. Why would a team see all of that in the teens and just be like, here's our first and second round picks to come up and get a player that we would feel just fine about getting in terms of value if we just stood pat? Outside of quarterback. Like maybe there's a market for Trey Lance or Mac Jones if they fall, but whatever. But say Darisaw and Slater are off the board. How much would it suck to have to take AVT? Again, there's nothing against AVT. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. But if Micah Parsons is still on board, or Kyle Pitts is still on board, or Trey Lance, or Caleb Farley, or Devontae Smith, you'll always be asking yourself, what if? And then drafting for need keeps you drafting for need, but the Vikings offseason may have them stuck. Now you could say, yes, go BPA in the first round and then maneuver with your other 10 picks, try to get in the second, or do something with your 2/3 and your 4 friggin' fourths, and then just hammer on the offensive line with the remaining picks. Yes, and hell, maybe trade up in the second, get in Wyatt Davis or Dickerson or Creed, or Mayfield or Radens or Cosme or whoever in the second round, or pray that Mainers or Ben Cleveland or David Moore or Kendrick Green are there in the third, sure. But I don't like living on a prayer, even though we're halfway there, because if there's a run on offensive linemen in the second round, like there has been 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, it's almost like it's a pattern. Then all of a sudden in the third round at 78 and 90, you're reaching for guys that should have been drafted day 3 into late day 2, which is not good. That's not a good recipe for success. Now, there's not a ton that they can do at this stage outside of cinching things up in free agency, getting Austin Blythe in the building. I think he'd be a phenomenal fit for what the Vikings want to do up front. Forrest Lamp, of course, Trey Turner, Brad Jones, bring him on back, Eric Fisher, or whoever in free agency before the draft. The Vikings do have some money to play with. And for the 17th time, this is not an aspersion on AVT or Darisaw or Slater. If they're the dude at 14 and the Vikings, at the end of the day, come out of the first round with a high caliber offensive lineman, I ain't mad. And like we said, it could work out where it is a position of need as well as they're one of the top players on the board. Certainly could. Or, F it. Do the Vikings just take Dickerson? Ooh, you could see it. But I would not be mad at it. But then you always wonder, what if? You watch the careers of those other dudes that the Vikings could have had at 14 if they weren't in such a hole where they need to take offensive linemen. Because based upon my advanced calculations, there are only 13 teams that draft before the Vikings at 14, so only 13 total players. So serious talent is going to fall into the Vikings' lap, especially if there's a run on quarterbacks and wide receivers. So the Vikings in this spot may be stuck going offensive line in the first round or reaching for offensive line later on. It's not a good spot to be in, man. Team BPA forever and always. But we'll see what happens. Your thoughts? Vikings stuck taking offensive linemen? Let us know in the comments section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support that work? Post on the Venmo. But until next time, Skol, production value.